we've been talking about the idea of shalom
Mhm.
and how, for me growing up, it was so synonymous with just peace, right? So shalom equals peace.
Yep.
But then we're talking about, well, shalom is a more complex idea of like wholeness and
Yep.
completeness and
Yep.
the way things were intended.
Mhm.
And so when I started reading and some of the stuff about you, I know that shalom was a big part of, I guess, how God is teaching you and so forth. So I would just love for you to talk about, I don't know, I guess a macro understanding of shalom.
Yeah, I think, one of the ideas that is more common that we've woken up to is this idea that the Hebraic idea of peace. It's this complex idea of wholeness, everything in its proper place, harmony with God's intent. And I like it over the idea of perfection. Perfection is such a
Mm,
static Western world word. Shalom is a dynamic part of creation world. When God makes creation good, everything, that state in which it existed, that purity, that goodness was shalom.
mm,
And so everything that comes that's not a part of that disrupts that shalom. It takes what's straight and makes it crooked. And so everything else has this relationship to shalom. Shalom is the desired expectation, the desired intention of God. It's everything as it should be, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, any of those things. It's health, it's shalom, and then you have ideas like righteousness and justice are the foundation of God's
mhm,
throne. Like,
mhm,
what when the psalmist says that, what are they talking about? Well, righteousness is the state of right relationship.
mhm,
It's Zadeka is being in right relationship with somebody or something. The path is straight, and mishpat is the declaration, the judgment that makes it straight. When it's not straight, it make so righteousness and justice. Why is that the foundation of God's throne? Because God is in the process of restoring
mm,
shalom, putting a distorted world back together.
mhm,
And what I've always found so inspiring is, I mean, God could just do that. God could do whatever he wants, but God chooses to engage that restorative work with a partner.
mm,
Like, there's something redemptive about the partnership, and God does that immediately. He does it with Noah immediately in the book of Genesis to restore the chaos. He does it with Abraham, in the story of Genesis to find a family. He does it with the nation of Israel in the story of the Exodus. God is always looking for a partner, always looking for somebody who will trust his story and join him in putting the world back together. And I think so much of Christian theology unfortunately put us in a place where we're all kind of waiting to get out of here some
yeah,
glad
yep.
morning when this life is o'er. Like, we all just are kind of like waiting for
I love that song.
disembodied. Yeah, I know it's sketchy, it just is not great theology. And you have this, like, you have this disembodied evacuation we're all kind of waiting for,
Hmm.
when the whole story was designed to invite us into like a physical participation
Yeah.
with God and his creation. There is a
Hmm.
stewardship we're being invited to
Hmm.
engage in, a restoration. Jews call it tikkun olam. That'd be after the days of Jesus, but they eventually call this work the repairing of the world, or tikkun
Wow.
olam in the Hebrew. Like,
Mm,
we are helping God. The rabbis will say, planting the trees of Eden. So now I'm ranting about shalom, but shalom is such a beautiful thing that God's always been very interested in and inviting us to be as well.
yeah, and that's, a lot of what we were trying to teach our students is the both and, right? Like there is this
Yep.
aspect that we look forward to and we are hopeful for
Yep.
that,
Yep.
but there's the and of here and now, like the
Yes.
kingdom of God. And like I
Yep.
love when Jesus would go somewhere, he would say, the kingdom of God is here. It is
Right.
now. And I'm
Yep.
I'm doing things, and I'm actually now inviting you as my followers into this work.
Yes.
And then I have to go so that I can give you my spirit so that you
Yes.
can continue in
Right.
this work. And both and is such a, I guess, beautiful thing. So if shalom is this idea of wholeness and God, what he's been up to since the beginning, and he's looking for partners, obviously some things that would fight against that, like our flesh, just our sinfulness. We have a real spiritual enemy, but then there's just the world, right? Um, I, I guess, can you with you involved with campus ministries and having kind of a pulse on colleges, what part of our current culture in the world right now fights most against this shalom in the kingdom? Like, are there any like characteristics or attributes of our culture that are really fighting against shalom?
Oh goodness, yes.
What stands out? What's like the top two?
Underneath all of it, like the thing that matters underneath the thing, is I even think it's underneath sin. Like I think Augustinian theology somewhat has gotten things a little bit like deprioritized stuff in the wrong direction. Underneath even sinfulness, underneath our sinful flesh, is fear and insecurity. Like that's what produces the byproduct of. In fact, when you go back and you look at the Greek word sarx in the New Testament, is what we used to translate sinful nature, and translators are like, ooh, maybe we should stop translate. So they translate it flesh, a word you used a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're really driving at, because it's hard to translate, is the Jewish idea is that it's our animal appetites. It's the part of us that is a beast. But we are more than a beast. We are created in God's image. But there is this fear, this fight or flight, this insecurity. And that is the greatest threat to shalom, because God keeps trying to say, listen, the world is broken, but if you will trust me, and we say belief, we say trust, we say faith. If you'll trust me and my goodness and my forgiveness, trust me with your fears, trust me with your insecurities.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be free to join me in putting the world, because putting the world back together means mercy. It means forgiveness. It means giving away. It means being generous. If you're fearful, you can't be generous. It's why every time Jesus talks about worry, it's connected with generosity. And every time he talks about generosity, he's going to talk about worry, because the two kill each other. And so this same fear and insecurity, I mean, it shows up in every way, every sinful way in our world. But when we talk about our tribal identities, like when we talk about how we feel about our political ideologies or our generational differences or our social conundrums, or we have a fear of the other. That party's fearful of this party because that party is obviously out to ruin the world. This group of people is obviously the evil in the world today. And what it does is we posture ourselves according to fear and insecurity. We will never participate in shalom postured. Now, fear and insecurity plays a helpful part, but it's not what we should be posturing ourselves. It's not the ground. It's not the foundation of our spiritual experience. And so that's the greatest. When I'm scared that I'm not enough, when I'm scared that I'm not going to get what's mine, when I'm scared that I'm losing, when I have a scarcity worldview rather than a worldview of abundance. Jesus talks about this. The Jews called it the good eye or the bad eye, ayin tova and ayin ra'ah in the rabbinic teaching. And Jesus talks about a good eye or a bad eye. And we're like, what is he talking about? Like what? He's talking about how you see the world. A good eye is a generous eye. It says there's more than enough to go around. Creation is good. God's got this. I can lay down my life because I have everything I need. Or I have an evil eye. I have ayin ra'ah, and I don't think there's enough, which means I have to protect myself. And I work for self-preservation. Well, that's what Cain and Abel. That's the story of two brothers killing each other in a field. That's the story of every is fear and insecurity. But we have to believe, we have to see the best, we have to assume the best in others, in that other ideology, in that other party, in that other tribe. That's how we put the world back together. I have to assume the best, trust in the goodness of God, be willing to love my enemies and forgive them. Then the world will never get put back together by just continuing the cycle of deserve it.
Yeah.
Because we don't deserve any. So if you just do the deserve it thing, this thing just spirals into chaos.
Yeah.
So you have to give people what they don't deserve. And that's not a sexy topic in our world today. Like that's not, we don't, oof, that's dangerous.